Welcome to Channel 17, the Town of Colonie Government Channel.
Hi, I'm Supervisor Paula Mahan, and welcome to Colony Connect. Our program is designed to keep you up to date on key happenings in our town, and today it's my pleasure to introduce to you our special guest, Mr. Jonathan Buhner, from the Superintendent of South Colonie School District. Welcome, John.
Well, thank you for the invitation, and we appreciate the opportunity to be here.
It's great to have you here. This is certainly a challenging time for all of us, and school districts are, at the top of the list. So as well as all of the academic challenges, you've got a lot going on. So we're happy you could take some time to be here with us today. As a former educator in North Colonie schools, but I know we're rivals, but we all get along.
That's right.
I know there are many factors that go into making a good school. And South Colonie School District is one of our region's best, and that's attributed to all of the hard work that you and your staff and the students, parents, everybody's involved, everything that goes into it to making it a great school district. So we're happy to have South Colonie, part of our town. And if we could just go over a little bit of background, like how long you've been with South
Sure.
Colonie, maybe start with that.
I'd be happy to. Been with South Colonie for 2 years as superintendent. 4 years prior to that, I was a superintendent in the southern tier in a little district called Walton.
Okay.
But a Class C school, very nice place, excellent district. And prior to that, I was a high school principal, a regional director, an assistant principal at a high school, and prior to that, a teacher for 8 or 9 years. So overall, 20 years in education and 2 years here at South Colonie.
Okay. It's a long time, and it seems like you've been in a lot of different positions, so you have a lot of experience. What's so different about your role as superintendent compared to say a principal or being in the classroom?
Well, I think the role's a little bit different because you have to work very closely with your board, and you have to really think about how you set your policies and how those policies will impact the overall good of every kid in the district. P12, where when you're a principal, you're kind of focused on your building and the specific kids and their success in your building. I have to take more of a global or a bigger vision.
Right.
As a superintendent, and then you have to try to get people to work together towards some common initiatives, things that are important for the overall good of the district.
Yes, I think when you're teaching in a classroom, you've got to get your students on board so that they're interacting together. So you really have your collaboration takes place a lot with the kids and with other staff members, and then you have interactions obviously with administration. When you're in your role as superintendent, a lot of people forget about how important it is to maintain your good interactions with the school boards who help to make a lot of those decisions. And but it is a collaborative effort on everyone's part. And I know, coming from an educational background, when I took this position, one of my objectives was to make sure that I kept that connection with our school districts, because we're really all preparing people, young people, for future generations. They're going to be taking everything over, and everything that we do, they watch, they see how we do it. They're really very important roles, and a superintendent's position is, I'm sure at times very challenging, but very, very rewarding.
It is. It's a demanding position. Certainly, my hours are interesting depending on the time of year, and certainly the commitments. And in a larger district, you're always doing the best you can to try to make some events at the different schools,
Sure.
while still trying to take care of the major decisions that have to be considered. I think sometimes people forget that you still have all the other things that aren't certainly aren't the total focus of a school district, but transportation and safety related to transportation, all of your buildings and maintenance and repairs, and making sure you're being a good steward for the community and taking care of their facilities. And so there are all those other little pieces too. They're not little, but the other pieces of the district too. But looking at it over the 6 years that I've been a superintendent, I really like the challenge. I like the fact that every day has different considerations that I have to think about, and I like the fact that we're a public school. You know, that we serve all kids, and that our job is to make sure every kid is successful, no matter what their range of abilities may be. So, you know, I take great pride in that, and I think it's we have some outstanding public schools in this area, North and South Colonie, and certainly around us. And that has everything to do with what you spoke about earlier, a board who's committed, volunteers their time, and thinks about the good of all kids, and great staff and administrators and PTA councils and parents who are involved and really care about the kids. And when you put it all together, you usually can work through any challenges that you have.
Yeah, there's so much that goes into it, and again, you know, you as a superintendent are working with so many different populations, and but yet there's, as I said, it's very rewarding. Of course, academically, when you see your students achieve, and there's nothing better than that, and you have that proud feeling, you know, that you were a part of that. And both school districts, North and South, I know, offer a continuum of services for all students, so all students can achieve the opportunities there. The students want to learn, and the assistance is there. So, you know, those are things that that really make a good school district, and that is what you just stated, and that is that you serve all students, and that's very, very important. We're fortunate in Colonie. We have, you know, outstanding public schools. We have a variety of other options for people that choose private schools. But the bottom line is we're all part of the same community, and we seem to all end up working together. And I know, you know, as well as taking care of all of your duties, I see you everywhere. I see you, you know, at the middle schools, bouncing basketballs. I see you at the concerts. I see you at the football games. The other day we were together. South Colonie girls came out #1, the bowling team for the New York State Championships.
Very proud of the girls. Yeah.
So that was great to be part of. So there are at times we get to have a little fun, you know. So that's good to have. You need to have a little fun every once in a while.
And it's the best part of the job.
Yes.
You know, going to those events, and a lot of people, I guess they consider it work or part of my job, but I have to tell you, I'm really enjoying being at those events, and it also helps you as a superintendent to remain focused on why we do this work.
Right.
You know, you see the kids and how they grow and change as people, and very proud of their progress, and it helps me to sort of recalibrate and say, okay, this is why we need to work through these challenges. And so as a superintendent, I think it's very important, at least for me, to be at those events, because it helps me to do a better job.
I think you, when you're in education for a long time, if you're there a long time, you usually love what you do, and you have to be in that field. Some people look at us and say, how can you surround yourself with all those kids? Why would you go back for more? But they just don't understand. It's a career that is just, it's so rewarding, and it offers so many different opportunities, and you're a perfect example of that. You know, you start off teaching, and here you are, superintendent of schools.
That's right.
Do you miss being in the classroom?
I think I do miss the interaction with kids, where you really, as a teacher or a coach, and especially if you're working with a kid over multiple years, you really get to see them grow and change and progress. And I still get to see our kids, but maybe not to that extent
Right,
that I
right.
used to as a, formerly. So I miss that a little bit, but I certainly think someday when I'm done with this work, I'll probably go back and volunteer somewhere to try to help in some aspect.
That's a good plan. Well, I know you have, we've talked a little bit about technology, and you have a strong interest in technology. Just in your words, why is it technology so important for educating today's students?
Well, there's a couple pieces here, and I'd separate it this way. Our kids, my own kids, I have a high school student and a middle school student. It's part of their world now. They communicate that way. They text. They're using the internet research, all the different things they do. The iPods. Their ability to multitask and receive information from different places. That's just, I think, the way the world is going.
Yeah,
and I
definitely.
think as educators, while we still have to consider some standard information and protocol that kids should learn, we also have to accept that, these tools and these skill sets that these kids have are going to be part of society, and therefore, how can we incorporate some of that into what we're doing every day to make sure we connect to kids and they're
Right.
successful.
Well, the younger the better. They seem to be very comfortable with it. When a lot of the technology was coming out, as adults, we're a little more cautious, and if we push that button, are we going to make a mistake, whatever, but the kids go right at it. It's, as you say, it's part of their world. It's going to be part of the careers that they choose. Almost every career out there at this point uses some type of technology, and it's just going to, there's going to be more and more of that. So I think it is very important for our kids to be able to learn those skills as young as possible. And I've heard you refer to tech literacy for students and teachers. Can you elaborate a little bit on that phrase?
In our district, I know, and we're sort of beginning to talk about this, and actually looking at what we're currently doing. There's two pieces to technology. There's the technology piece, which involves how teachers are using it as an instructional tool, whether it's a smart board or computers in a computer lab for kids, and to help kids learn, just like they use a chalkboard or a book
Sure.
or a lesson plan. It's a tool for the teachers. But then there's a whole nother piece that we're starting to look at as a district, which is as our kids progress through school, pre-K through 12, and they leave us, what is the background of knowledge that we expect the kids to have from a technological literacy standpoint? In other words, in grades 4, 8, and 11, for example, what would we expect all kids to be able to do with certain types of technology? Almost like you would look at an English curriculum, K-12, or a math curriculum. So we're beginning to sort of embark on that. And the interesting thing with that is that technology changes so quickly that when we are able to put a plan in place, we're also going to have a procedure to continually be reviewing that plan and perhaps changing those skill sets as kids leave. Our hope is that we can give our kids what they need to go out and be competitive in post-secondary education or even in some technical area or market. So we think that there's a whole nother level of tech literacy which is student-specific, almost like a curriculum that we'd like to start to look at.
And this is important too, also for students that are going into the field of education. This is another skill as teachers they're going to have to master and integrate it into their daily lessons. It'll be part of the curriculum. And again, there are certain standards, that you set that they're going to have to meet. So again, it's diversifying the skills that our new teachers coming into the field, And some of the teachers that have been there a long time, new skills that they've got to
Sure.
learn. So they've got to learn along with the kids, and the students really have that, that are going into education, have that added challenge. Education is so different today. Teachers have to master skills today that they didn't years ago. There's a lot of territory to cover, along with these types of skills, social skills, being able to provide a well-balanced environment for students. These are all things that happen within the school day. Now, one of the other things that the focus has been on early literacy, and maybe you could just describe what you're doing in South Colonie and how you achieve those goals.
Well, I'll tell you, there's some key people that have worked very hard on this over the last 3 to 4 years, and as a district, we've kind of taken the approach of get the kids in, expose them to as much of our program as possible, as early as possible. And this early literacy kind of rolls into UPK and full-day kindergarten also. So what we have done is try to get our kids into the schools early and often for longer periods of time. And then also they've done a really nice job of putting in some consistent approaches to balanced literacy in all of the elementary buildings. Leveled books, different strategies that the teachers we've had some outstanding trainers coming in and working with our teachers throughout all the elementary buildings, with the goal being to obviously have as many of our kids on grade level or above as quickly as possible. The goal would be, my goal as superintendent would be, I'd like to see the majority of our kids at or above grade level by the end of 3rd grade. Which, based on what we're seeing so far, and feedback from our kindergarten teachers and our literacy people, our assistant superintendent for instruction, so far so good. We're seeing some great results with our kindergarten kids. The literacy strategies seem to be working, and we believe it's going to have a positive impact on the district in the long run. The whole aspect of learn to read, read to learn. And you know as a former teacher that when things become more geared towards content instead of reading and literature, a kid that's behind, that it becomes much more difficult later. So it seems to be a good approach. It's working well, and we're going to continue on that path. I think our only challenge is when we have transient kids that have not been in the district and have not, unfortunately, they haven't had access to all the things that are taking place now. Then we obviously have to take other approaches to try to catch those kids up.
Yeah, there are certainly there are strategies out there that have proven that they work well, but they are based on building a foundation and then building from there. And for students that haven't had that advantage of those early strategies, it's learning those strategies from the beginning. There is some catching up and some different styles of teaching. Obviously, with thousands of kids, they're all different. They all have different learning styles. They all have strengths and weaknesses and different motivation levels. And that's the challenge of getting kids that lack the motivation to try to build that intrinsic motivation so they want to learn for the sake of learning, for the benefit of themselves, as well as students that truly have learning problems. They have some difficulties. They can learn, but they learn differently, and you've got to provide the staff to meet all of those needs. And there are a lot of intervention programs, I know, in both school districts that are there for students with varying needs, as well as those students that are at risk, which if you can make that intervention early on, you have a great chance of of having that student meet success. But it's, again, it's having the proper programs in place, having the staff that works together collaboratively, and also keeping the expectations out there. You know, I know from my years of teaching, if you set the expectations and outline, you know, what the goals are, they usually meet them. They work hard and they meet them, but it's a lot of work. I know some of the things that I did when I was back in North Colonie is we would also track the students to see, you know, are they transferring those skills to the next grade level? Are they transferring those skills as they either enter the workforce or college, whatever? How are things working? Because that's a big part of monitoring your progress. You need to know how they're doing as they move on, and you have those in place as well, I'm sure, in South Colonie.
We do. We're doing some. It's funny you mentioned that. We're really embarking on some, I think, very important initiatives. You know, pre-K through 8, we're working on individual student growth tracking. In other words, we're in the process of creating some pilot databases that we're using now, which is going to be in more of a formalized software package here shortly, by next year, where we're tracking kids individually for growth in ELA and math. And we hope to break that down very specifically, so you could say, how is my daughter doing in regard to fluency? What has her growth pattern been? And we've got some terrific people working on this. We have kind of looked to see what other districts around the state are doing this and around the country. There isn't a lot. Colorado had a growth model. We took a look at some of their information, but we think we're on the right path, and we'll be using this with all of our kids K-8, tracking their individual growth. A lot of different information will be in that document, not just the standardized test information.
Okay.
I mean, that's good information. It gives you a snapshot of where that kid is on certain assessment criteria on that given day. But we're looking for much more than that. So we're actually putting that in place in math and ELA next year. And there will be people who share that data with the individual principals, who will then share the data with all the appropriate staff members, the teachers who provide extra support, AIS services, special needs teachers, the classroom teachers. They'll also have the data. Our hope is to create information that's very useful to the people that are working with the kids every day. So we're really pleased that we're going that direction, and I think it's a good use of resources and a smart way to connect the data to the people who actually do the work with the kids every day. So we're working on that, and at the high school level, it's a little different approach. 9 through 12, we actually track full cohorts. So I'm the 9th grade class, the 10th grade class, 11th and 12th. We're tracking that full group of kids, academics, attendance, sometimes behavior, making sure they're on track towards graduation, meeting credit requirements, and certainly trying to prepare them for, you know, whatever their plans are. But the hope there is to, by closely monitoring kids as they move through in their full groups, is that we will have very high graduation numbers as the kids move out. So,
and that's
a couple levels of tracking.
And that's certainly a goal, that is to all over, is to increase the number of students that graduate. And I know, you know, when you talk about tracking, you talk about assessment and the data that you collect when you do these assessments. It is so critical, and it is another part of education that a lot of our you know, parents and viewers might not realize, that we do all of these things as well as being in the classroom or being in administration. There are a lot of other things that go on in the background that help to teach staff members as to that data, that assessment data tells us how our students are learning, you know, what are their styles of learning, are there pockets of weakness that it's evident we're not reaching that particular skill.
Sure.
It's so important, and I know at the college level, the students that are going into education, assessment is a major part of their curriculum, and it is critical. It is very critical, and we move so fast. You know, we've got to move through things because we've got a lot of territory to cover, and when we don't have enough time in the school day, that's when we take a look at where we need the extra help, and you've got to develop those programs outside
Sure.
of the school day or during the summer to add that extra service. So that is a really important part. And for our listeners out there, when we use different ways to describe our programs, like ELA for our listeners, that's English Language Arts.
Good point.
AIS is Academic Intervention Services, so we have a lot of these acronyms that we work with on a daily basis, and but we know what they are, and they have a lot of meaning behind them. So there's an awful lot that goes on in one school day. So when you put that all together for one school year, it moves quickly. Now, there's something else, you know, that we were always struggling with, and that is math and science skills. We often hear in other countries the students are better prepared in those areas. I think we're doing a good job with that. I mean, there's a lot of emphasis on programs, especially, you know, and as the kids get into the high school level, they can really focus or major in those areas on math, science combined with technology. So I think we're progressive in that area at this point. You can always do better. But,
I would agree, and you know, some of those studies you have to be careful, because in Europe, some kids are split occasionally into trade schools, certain technical areas, and then other kids are more geared towards specific academic areas that they're moving towards. In here, in our country, in New York, all kids are going through, you know, a setup where we expect them to meet certain levels of math
right.
and standards, which is a good approach. We want all kids to get through specific levels of science and math. I know in our current district, we're working on some STEM initiatives, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, and also working to expand some of our post-secondary agreements to have more seamless connections for our kids from high school, moving on to some of the post-secondary institutions in the areas. We have some nice articulation agreements and credit agreements currently with SUNY Albany, HVCC, and St. Rose. And what we will be doing in the next few years is taking a look at how their programs have changed and what they offer, and it is significantly different than it was a few years ago. And then what we currently have in our programs, and trying to kind of make some adjustments in the middle to make sure our kids have those seamless opportunities to move out of our high school and hopefully right into those different avenues if they choose to go that route. So exciting times. There's some terrific new things going on in some of our local schools with the Tech Smart facility, the different high-tech industries that will be moving into the region. So I think public schools need to be working at internally, looking at their programs, their electives, what they currently have, and what adjustments we may need to make.
Well, you know, I think it's outstanding that you know, you're working with all of the local colleges and making that connection to the types of careers that are out there and training. And you know, again, it's part of that natural transition process. I mean, we go from pre-K to elementary, middle school, high school, and then, you know, there's what's out there after that. So there are so many choices and so many different directions, so many opportunities, and it's great if if our school districts can have that connection with the colleges. So it gives the students some reality to what they have there, some guidance with some of their choices. And as you say, we're getting a lot around here when you talk about a lot of development, when you talk about technology and skills in math and science. We have global foundries that's coming. We have in Watervliet, the Watervliet Arsenal Partnership is attracting a lot of technology companies there. We just had the grand opening here in the town of Colonie for angiodynamics, and they make medical devices, all types of new age technology that does unbelievable things that you couldn't believe some of these things could be. These medical things can be done with such tiny devices, and makes the healing process so much faster and so much easier, and the actual procedure itself, something that may have taken a couple of weeks, in the hospital, whatever, in a day or two now it's done. And this is what it's all about. It's these kids are going to come into this world, and we have so much opportunity around here between what's going on at SUNY at Albany, what's going on, as we say, at Global Foundries, and right in our own neighborhood. And what better thing to do than to connect our kids to it? So
there's no question. We look at our population of kids, and 50%, 40 to 50% go on to two-year colleges. Another 40 to 50 go on to four-year colleges. So we have a large number of kids that certainly could take advantage of the programs around here, and it's important that we position them to at least have that opportunity. They don't have to necessarily go that route, but I think having those partnerships with the post-secondary institutions is very important, because they're partnered with industry and business, and they have I think a very solid pulse on what's happening out there and what opportunities there are for our kids. I mean, one of the items that I reviewed a few months ago was the Krieger report, and it talked about the shortfalls of estimated labor force in these high-tech industries. So there's information out there that says we need to do what we're doing, which is to try to ramp up and make sure our kids are at least prepared to look at those opportunities as they leave high school.
It's great opportunities for new careers, and this has become a very progressive area right here in the Capital District. Well, we're almost out of time. Just have maybe one last question. What advice would you give to someone who's pursuing a career in education? Well,
the advice I think I would start with is, as a foundation, you have to love kids. You have to care about kids. The methodologies and the strategies, they will learn all those important skills with good instruction in college and their programs that they go into. But I think you have to really enjoy being around kids and watching kids grow up. And I've always enjoyed that, and it's made my career terrific. I would also say that I really feel this way, that we know a lot more now about how kids learn.
Definitely.
And you talk about research-based learning. I remember when I went through college, it was focused on, this is the content you will teach, and here's your lesson plan, and here's the delivery. But we didn't talk a lot about methodologies to make sure the kid got it or understood the matter. Now they're talking about content, and most universities are doing a really nice job with starting to focus on those research-based methodologies too. And I think for the new teachers, it's really important that they understand that there's the content piece, and then there's the methodology piece of, how do you make sure kids are engaged, enjoy what they're doing, and understand the information that you're trying to give them. So those two big pieces, I think, our new teachers, and they have some tremendous tools today with the technology that we may not have had, 20 years ago. I was happy if I had a nice chalkboard. Now they have these tremendous smart boards where you can pull up all kinds of fantastic resources. So I think it's an exciting time to be in education because of all the things we've learned about learning and the research and neuroscience, and I think it's a great field, and if you're interested, strongly encourage people to look at it.
Well, as a former educator, I agree with you 100% on what you just said, and you know, it's an outstanding career, and again, if you love kids and you love to watch them learn and help them learn, it's a great place to be. So it was, you know, as I say, I enjoyed every minute of my career in teaching, and a lot of skills that I've learned that helped me in this position today. So I know where you're coming from. Well, I really do appreciate you taking time to be here today on Colony Connect. It's always great for me when I get to talk about education, so it's a little special treat for me, so I appreciate that. So thank you very much for being here today.
Well, thank you for inviting us. On behalf of the district, I thank you for giving us the opportunity to talk to you here today.
Yes, and I'm sure I'll see you again soon.
Thank you.
And thank you for tuning in to Colony Connect.